If you've watched my BRRRR investing video, your next question is probably, should I use the BRRRR strategy for short-term rentals like Airbnb or traditional long-term rentals? The answer is simply both can work, but one is usually much easier, less risky, and more predictable. In this video, we'll break down why. Remember, BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. The goal simply isn't to own rental property. The goal is to recycle as much of your original cash as possible so you can buy your next investment property. Because of that, you need two things. You need increased property value through your renovations, and you need to create enough rental income for the refinance to make sense. That's where the differences between long term and short term rentals start to show up. For most investors, long term rental properties are a better fit for the BRRRR strategy. Here's a few reasons why. Long term properties offer more predictable and stable income. Lenders love predictable monthly income. If your property rents for $3,500 a month, it's easier for both you and the lender to estimate cash flow over the long term. Long term properties are easier to finance. Most lenders understand long term rental properties, and their underwriting is a little bit more straightforward. So they're often easier to finance. That's what makes refinancing long term rehabs more simple than doing a rehab on a short term property. Long term rental properties offer lower overall risk. Long term tenants typically stay for a year or longer. You're not consistently worrying about occupancy, cleaning, seasonality, or changing travel demands. And long term properties are usually easier to scale. If your goal is to own 5, 10, 20, or more properties someday, long term rentals are generally much easier to manage and finance over the long term. Now, this doesn't mean that the BRRRR strategy can't work for Airbnb properties. In the right market, they can actually produce significantly more income than long term rentals. Some examples of markets include vacation destinations, ski towns, beach communities, and areas with generally higher year round tourism demand. If the numbers work, the additional income can actually improve your cash flow tremendously. However, there are challenges. Short term rentals also introduce additional risk, like occupancy changes throughout the year, higher operating expenses, including rehab costs in most cases, furniture and setup costs, cleaning fees, local regulations, HOA restrictions, and permitting requirements. Those are expenses that many investors don't account for in most cases. The refinance strategy can be different on long term versus short term rentals. One thing many investors don't realize is that refinancing an Airbnb can sometimes be much more complicated. Some lenders qualify properties using projected short term rental income, while others may rely on traditional rental values depending on the loan program you're seeking to use. That's why it's important to talk with a lender before you buy, not after you've already invested thousands into the property. So, what type of property is best for you? If you're buying your first investment property, I'd usually recommend starting with a long term rental. They're easier to finance, easier to manage, and generally provide more predictable cash flow while you learn. Once you've built experience and understand the numbers, adding short term rentals to your portfolio can absolutely make sense if they're in the right markets. Neither strategy is right for everyone. The best investment is the one that fits your goals, your market, and your risk tolerances. If you're thinking about buying your first investment property or additional properties and want to understand your financing options before making that offer, I'm always here to help. I'm a Colorado mortgage broker specializing in investment property financing, and I help investors understand exactly what loan options are available to them before they buy the property. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel and let me know in the comments below which strategy you prefer, long term or short term. I'd love to hear your thoughts.